Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream.
Dave, hi.
Hello, Casey. How are you?
Are you surviving this week?
Well, I'm clinging on fingertips, frankly.
All right, as per usual. Got it. I'm excited to have this guest on today because he's a friend who I haven't seen in a million years. And as you know, this is how I see my friends now. I just book them for the podcast and then we catch up in front of everyone. I don't know if I feel proud of that or not, but that's where we are.
You should go out more. You should just try going out.
What? Leave my computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do more of that. But in the meantime, this guy has, at least from the outside, one of the coolest jobs I have ever witnessed in life. He's co-founder, co-creator of Ford's Gin. Hello, Simon Ford.
Casey, hi. And
welcome.
David, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Simon. I like it. Ford's Gin, and you are Ford. You are the man, aren't you?
He is the man.
Wow.
Simon Ford, Ford's Gin, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, my ego must be big, but it's not, I promise.
And was it the Queen or the Queen Mother used to love the G&Ts? Was it?
Actually, both.
Did they?
Famously, the Queen Mother, yeah.
Yeah. I think someone was once doing the diet of the Queen for a day and just said, I was just drunk.
Champagne and gin and tonic. I mean, much respect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one way to make it happy through the day.
Yeah.
And I will say, Simon, when from the outside, it seems like your job is traveling the world, eating delicious food, and hanging out with fun people. Like from the outside, that's what you do for a living. What is it really like?
That is a big part of it, you know, and it is heaps of fun until it isn't. It's a weird one, right? You know, you can have too much of a good thing, and whenever I go on a trip, you know, like I'll have the very first meal, you know, and I went to Pastioli in Santa Monica last night as I landed in LA. And I'm like, oh, this is magical. But like in 2 weeks, I'll have gone out for dinner every night for 2 weeks in a row. And even the greatest restaurant in the world, I'm just like, I'm too full. I haven't worked out. I need a break from it. But I will say it's a highly, highly enjoyable job. And for the most part, I have nothing to complain about other than, you know, maybe I could lose a few pounds.
So some nights you just want toast and Marmite, don't you?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. Give me the beans on toast, you know, and a cup of bad, you know, PG Tips tea. You know,
come on. That's what
how do you balance that out? Because I feel the same when I travel. Like by the time I get home, I'm like, oh my God, I just want like some plain lettuce and some lemon water, and I want to go to bed at like 8 p.m.
That is how I balance it out. It's going home, you know, it's because when I travel, I want to eat the cake. You know, the places that I get to visit. If I'm in LA, you know, there are places that I really want to go and I want to see, and I don't want to go there and just have the salad, right? I want to enjoy the place for what the work the chef has done, the work that the bartender has done with the cocktails, you know, the work the sommelier has done with the wine, you know, like, and so I when I leave home, I expect it. You know, that's my analogy. I expect to eat the cake, you know. I do have the dessert, but that means when I go home, I have to find the balance. And so I don't really have balance by the day. It's definitely a giant pendulum swing. It could be a 2 week trip away from home and of gluttony. And then the reverse, when I get home, it's the lemon water, you know, hopefully a trip to the sauna and having a juice in the morning rather than
do you have an intravenous drip?
Breakfast.
Do you have an intravenous drip just to cleanse yourself for 2 weeks?
You know what? I hope that they actually, is that an invention that I need? Because
oh my God, there's a place near me that does that.
They do it on the way back from Vegas. You can actually go and have a full cleanse, and they literally do that for you.
You know, because I live in Nashville at the moment, and so a cleanse there is a beer and a burger, isn't it? Where it's not quite Los Angeles, where everyone goes down to Irwan and has $30 juices that like will make them live until 172.
When did you have a $30 juice at Irwan? It's at least double that now, isn't it? Is it? Yeah. You've not been here for a while.
Simon knows people. He gets the discount. It is a difficult. So wait, how did you even come to doing this? You know, like people become sommeliers, but like, how do you decide, like, I like gin, I like drinking, I'm going to create my own? Where did it start?
I mean, I have to give credit to the person that hired me for coming up with the idea that my job needed to exist. You know, there was a period, if you go back to the 90s, I'm going to say, and you know, into the early 2000s, when drinkers were sort of quite boring. Actually, they would. I'm not saying their lifestyle was boring, but what they drank. If you looked at a cocktail menu back in the 90s, it was vodka or flavored vodka taking up 90% of a cocktail menu. You know, obviously I'm making up statistics, but you get the picture. And there's all these incredible spirits out there, whether it's the mezcal, tequila, gin, of course, whiskeys. You know, the list could go on, right? But it was just being dominated by vodka, which is the least flavorsome of the spirit world, right? And but no one really wanted to jump out of that. And my boss and obviously my job was gin. And he was like, we're going to need to teach the world how to enjoy gin again. And therefore, that is your job. And so it took many forms. One form would actually be education on the category and how much fun it is and why it's not something your grandmother should drink or the queen and the queen mother. So there was an educational component to it where I
love this. Did you go to schools going, you must drink, kids, you must drink alcohol?
Well,
the first half of sex ed was how to pick the right gin to set the mood.
Some of you have been coming to school sober. We've got to talk about this.
Yes. Well, thankfully it wasn't that level. Although if you look back at the history of gin, one of the godfathers of the gin category was a professor at Leiden's University in the Netherlands, and he was one of the creators of the gin category. So I often wonder, but there was no age limit on alcohol back then, so I guess he wasn't breaking the law. But for me,
when did the age limit come in?
I actually do not know that. I should know that, but
we'll research that later.
Oh, I'm going to research that right now.
Research that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, my job was, and this is the second why my job became so much fun. My job was to give education to bartenders on the gin category, teach the different styles of gin, and then of course, who become my best friends? Bartenders, and bartenders were the first ones to sort of love gin in the gin category. They're the first ones to say, hey, a real martini is gin and vermouth, not vodka shaken, right? They're the ones that started bringing the Negroni cocktail back. And gin is probably the most quintessential cocktail spirit. There are more classic cocktails that call for gin than any other category. And it's sort of had a rich history with cocktail culture for a couple of centuries. And so that sort of came together. And so my world became talking about gin to bartenders in some of the best bars in the world. That was my boss saying, you should go do that. We should get people drinking gin again. And that's how we did it. So it was fun. It was me going around to all the bars, offering education and talking about cocktails, and then going back to those bars and drinking said cocktails with bartenders.
What a hell of a job. I've got breaking news, by the way. It was 1984. Ronald Reagan introduced the in the USA, 21.
What? It was only as recent as 1984 that there was an age limit on drinking?
Yeah.
That can't possibly be
Maybe it was 18 before then or something like that.
In the UK, it was introduced in 1923 to be 18.
Wow.
So there you go. It's yeah.
So you're teaching people about like different gins and making different cocktails, and then, but like, how do you realize I'm gonna make my own? But is that when you were a brand ambassador? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I went through a lot of different career changes before I even sort of got to the place where I thought I might do the crazy thing and become an entrepreneur and make my own gin. And honestly, the initial idea wasn't mine. My friends said, you should really do this. And for me, I was just like, no, there's plenty of good gins out there. I don't think there's a need for one. Of course, little would I know that about 3,000 new gins would get launched between that conversation and me launching mine. I didn't read the market that well. But thankfully, we've survived. Forged Gin's now been around. We launched it in 2012.
Oh, it's been that long.
At the end, yeah. So I guess where are we coming up to? 13.
I will say I see your gin like everywhere, and it's almost become my gauge now of like, oh, they must be a good bar. They must know what they're doing because they have Forged Gin on their shelf.
Did you make it with part of the Olympics in London? Was it part of that launch?
No, that would have been epic. But of course, the entrepreneur doesn't have any money to go and do anything as exciting as special as that might be. I think by the time Forged Gin might be able to be a part of the Olympics, it might be when I'm not even able to get out of my chair.
I don't know. You'll have the special IV that keeps you superhuman. How do you keep your liver healthy when you basically have to drink for a living? Because I know I worked on Tales of the Cocktail with you, and I had to really game up to keep up, and I still could not keep up. You guys, professional cocktail people, can put them down.
I don't want to ever appear like I'm a scientist, but I do like to sort of hold on to some things that I read. And I was told that the body's resilient and it rejuvenates itself, and the liver does that, and so a month off can repair your liver, but I don't know for sure that that's true. And I don't know what condition my liver is currently in today. But I do take those sort of extended periods off. Of course, I don't ever advocate for dry January. Dry January is the one time when your bartender needs you most.
Yes.
It's also the one time when you get the best attention from your bartender because places are less busy. It's the one time you can get the reservations that you want with, and so it's just a nice time to support the bartender community, and so I often spend more time going out in January, and besides, February is a much shorter month, right? So if you can
I've always thought that makes much more sense, February. I mean, I tried dry January this year, but on January the 7th, the whole LA set on fire, and I was like, that's how far I got. I was like, I need a drink.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of drinking in January this year.
Was that the day the fire started?
Yeah,
January the 7th. Yeah. We evacuated, and the first thing I did was a drink was put in my hand, and I thought, how could I say it's dry January when that's going down the throat.
There was a lot of drinking during the pandemic and stuff too. Do you find that these terrible times in the world have been sort of like beneficial with alcohol sales? Because it feels like everyone was struggling, but it was like, but the liquor market's up. Like, if when there's nothing else you could do and you need to cope, it's not the best coping mechanism, but a lot of us are doing it a lot of the time.
I think there's a famous saying, isn't there? In good times, there's drink, and in bad times, there's drink.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it's been such a resilient industry, because it's technically been around for thousands of years and in a recorded sense for about 5 centuries. So, there's definitely something to be said for people enjoying a drink. But, drink is more than just getting drunk, that's the sort of stereotype that everyone likes to throw at it. I definitely think it's a very interesting sort of take on it, because ultimately the best way to enjoy alcohol is by having something that's delicious, having that amazing glass of wine with your dinner, having that perfect martini at the end of a day's work, that beer on a cold day, those are the enjoyments of the world of alcohol, rather than the giant nights and the absurd hangovers, which of course every now and then that's fun, as long as you don't hurt anyone, it's fun to go out and make some mistakes and some bad decisions from time to time. We all never learned from those things. But
sure, you need some stories to tell when you're having, the gatherings over the dry few days. Remember when?
Remember when? And I'm never going to do that ever again, right?
Exactly. This time I'll do better.
but the ultimate enjoyment comes out of tasting something delicious, and alcohol and drinks, whether it's cocktails or wine, they come from the culture of a place. They come from the flavors of a place. They come from the agriculture of a place, which is why it usually complements the local food where that local drink might come from. And just learning that is amazing, And most people in the world, not all, but most people in the world know how to enjoy it rather than abuse it.
For sure. And so it was like young Simon at the dinner table at like 7 eating whatever your mom made. And you're like, do you know what would pair nicely with this, Mom?
Yeah. And my lovely working class family would say, shut up.
When I was a kid, I wasn't really aware of cocktails. That seemed to be a very American thing. Is that right? Or is that I didn't really have a cocktail till I came to America. And it was like, and I remember being totally thrown in a British way of going, what can I have? And I remember being in Manhattan.
When did you move to America, David?
I moved to America in 2004, but my first time in America was in the 90s. And I remember being at a bar and just like going, and someone going, what do you want? And I'm like, well, for me, it was like a beer or wine. Sure. And then it was like, and you look behind this bar, and I'd never seen anything like it. There was so many choices. And I always felt like, I don't know, maybe I'm being very British about that, but in my British pub, it was like you had the local beer or a glass of wine.
Well, what about, like gin and whiskey? It's not like
not together.
No.
But
the only real cocktails that you might find in a pub in England might, you have a gin and tonic. Which,
gin and tonic, yeah.
You could argue is more of a highball or or spirit and mixer kind of combination. And you have drinks that sort of fit that bill, but you would certainly find a Bloody Mary is probably the one cocktail that you would find in an English pub, But you are definitely right, David. It's a very American invention right from the beginning. And the sort of golden age of cocktails sort of was born in the USA, but it didn't take long before it spread around the world, in England, for example, the Savoy Bar, which is the American bar at the Savoy, opened in 1893. And there was a bartender by the name of Ada Coleman that invented the hanky panky cocktail, and that's a great name. But
that is a great name.
It's a very important one because it's a drink with Fernet Branca, which is still a bartender favorite, and gin in it. But of course, they were making these American cocktails for visitors that were coming from across the pond. And the Savoy is the most famous, but it wasn't the only one. There were several American bars in London at the time. There were American bars in Paris. There were American bars in Cuba. This was before the embargo. And so, you start seeing them around the world. And if you went to sort of 5-star hotels, even in places like Egypt, you start seeing this spread of cocktail culture. And so it sort of became quite an international thing, and that was really boosted by Prohibition, because a lot of bartenders left the USA and took their profession with them. And so you have someone like Harry McAlone, who invented famous drinks like, his bars, things like the French 75 and the Sidecar were invented. And he opened a place called Ciro's in London. He opened one in Paris. And we just come out of World War II. And so that's when we have this bright young things. And we're all drinking martinis and cocktails then. What really sort of killed cocktail culture in England was World War II. And what's quite interesting about the US is outside of after World War II, they go into tiki culture, and it was palm trees. And that was sort of born here in California, actually. It was sort of like, like escape from reality and go into this kind of like wonderful world. And until people could jump on planes over to Hawaii, it was like Hawaii had come to them. And so cocktail culture sort of thrived a little bit in the USA. And you had that Mad Men era where there's the 3 martini lunch. Meanwhile in England, it's sort of seen as a bit frivolous because we're coming out of this depression of World War II where we'd been bombed a lot. Now, I'm not saying that didn't happen in the US. We just dealt with it slightly differently, right? The 60s come along, and there's a sort of cultural change that sort of kills cocktail culture on both sides of the pond, really. And even though it sort of stayed in small, luxurious places, it would be, it's sort of something that was reborn out of the 90s. There's this thing that we call the cocktail renaissance, and it did start in both London and the USA, which is amazing, and certain other parts of the world. Now, the thing with London, and this is why, if you go to a pub, you still probably won't see a cocktail in the pub, but the cocktail bars started opening in London around that time, and there's a really amazing guy who I was fortunate enough to know, and his name was Dick Bradsell. And in the 80s in London, he invented a very famous gin drink. This gin drink was called the Bramble, which you can find sort of, around the world. It's essentially a gin sour with some blackberry liqueur. And that's kind of like considered a modern classic. But he also invented a drink that wherever you look, you see people drinking this drink now. And that's the espresso martini, or as it was originally known, the vodka espresso. So Dick Bradsell would invent those two drinks, along with several others, actually. And they come out of London. So London's actually had quite a considerable amount of influence on cocktail culture around the world now, which is really cool. But it was born in the 90s, really, and now it flourishes. If you went to London now, the amount of amazing cocktail bars and world-class cocktail bars, some of the best in the world. London's probably one of the best cities to get a drink. But back to the USA, I mean, it's the same here. I mean, there's brilliant bars in LA. There's brilliant bars all over the country. There's Arizona Cocktail Week happening right now. And to your point, Casey, if they have Forged Gin, I think they're a good cocktail bar.
Yeah.
Forged Gin's a very little known brand, but the people that know it are the bartenders.
That's how we judge it.
So that's why I love and know so much about cocktails and cocktail culture. It's just that's the bread and butter of my business.
So it's Louis Trez and Forged Gin. That's how we know it's a good bar. Is that
perfect?
Right? Yeah. Was it gin used well in India? Wasn't that? I mean, I know I'm talking about the Brits being colonizers and
I mean, there's obviously a dark history, but it is it is history nevertheless. And the gin and tonic evolved because of the need for the quinine, and that obviously was anti-malarial, and it didn't taste very good. But mix it with gin, and in fact, throughout history, gin has been mixed with various things to help people take their medicine. And so in India, the quinine was mixed. You'd add sugar to take the bitterness off. You'd add water, and you'd add gin to make make it taste better. And that was the origins of the gin and tonic. Eventually, they would learn how to make tonic and add the fizz and the spritz and make it a more refreshing experience. And that was also sort of born to serve in India, the colonialists in India as well. So yes, India plays a role in it. And there's another drink called the gimlet, which was invented by the Merchant Navy. You put lime in with your gin, and you stop scurvy. Yeah. So you start to see a little pattern of that period. The English took gin with them wherever they went. They took rum with them. The Dutch took gin with them wherever they went, and so you start to see them as the first kind of gin being one of the first international spirits.
It's why we're called limeys, isn't it?
It is.
we were going around the world trying to stop ourselves getting from scurvy. Yeah.
I went to Trinidad and Tobago, and they call being lazy and having a lazy day at the beach liming.
What, being like a Brit?
Well, that was it. They were like, the origins of the story were, well, the Brits would be seen with these limes in their mouths, because we put the lime in our mouth, and then just because it couldn't handle the heat, would just be sat down being lazy. So they literally call being lazy liming, and it's a term that comes from the British being.
The Brits gave so much to the world.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Simon, have you come up with a cocktail that's like a specific Simon Ford thing that you got to give some fun name?
Not really. I mean, I've made a few in my time. I think my favorite would be what I call the slow grony. Which is making a Negroni cocktail, but with slow gin. Instead of the vermouth. And that was fun. I did that a long time ago in the city of Plymouth. And I remember when I worked in a cocktail bar, coming up with a rum drink, not a gin drink, called Mum's Apple Pie, which was just apple juice, cinnamon, spiced rum. I think that last drink though has been invented by about 10,000 bartenders over the years. It's one of those obvious flavor combinations. And, so no, I don't really have a classic to my name that's really sort of ever taken off. But I think that,
I mean, you do have Ford's gin, so everyone's making theirs with yours.
It's kind of by design, because I always have this philosophy that what's in a bottle of Ford's gin isn't the final product. It's whatever that bartender does. And I'm interested in what they do with it. They're like, today's bartenders are so educated on flavor and ingredients and technique. Like they're the ones that just can make magic out of all of these things. It's a lot of fun.
I must drink more. I've been slowing down. You're encouraging me, actually, and re-educating me that I'm wasting my life going through it sober. I must drink more.
If it's a nice sip, it's worth it. So was this the dream? Are you living your dream, Simon?
Oh gosh, it's not quite gone to plan, actually, Casey. I thought that I would start working in the drinks industry and I would enjoy it, until I was like, okay, as you get older, it is harder to metabolize booze. I'm like, you know what? So I was hoping that, by my 40s, I would no longer be working in booze, but I'd be working in chocolate and coffee. And then when I had the jitters and was, told by my doctor that I should stop eating chocolate, I was thinking I would try and find a career in, like, a midlife crisis career in yoga or something, but no, I'm still with the booze.
I love that. Your doctor says keep drinking as much as you can, but for God's sake, save on the chocolate. That's brilliant advice.
But
it's a British doctor, right? It was a British doctor who told you that.
Doctor, yeah.
Of course. He had a gin and tonic in his hand as he was telling you that, right?
Right. This will stop the malaria, yeah.
This will keep the midlife scaries from getting you. Just keep drinking the gin.
The thing I love about my job, and the reason I think that I've never moved on from it, is, it's a bit like journalism, or probably like this podcast. You get to like tiptoe into other people's lives, and I think about all of the places where cocktails show up, right? Which is that they're essentially all the places where my business or my life can show up. So as an example, we did this. I mean, this is like a dream come true, but we were asked if we could sponsor and do the cocktails for a Tribe Called Quest's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction after party, right? Which they did with Kool and the Gang. So here I am.
Oh my God.
At the Tribe Called Quest and Kool and the Gang's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after party, of which it's a small room, and all their friends are there, and an impromptu performance, from Mary J. Blige and Jennifer Hudson and a Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul, Flavor Flav's there, Dave Chappelle. This thing is just like this beautiful moment, and because we're providing the drinks and we're offering that part of I guess the experience, I get to be a part of it. And so my job kind of like spreads into these areas, or perhaps it's, one of the best restaurants in the world, and they're doing a cocktail and food pairing, and I get to work with a chef, and that's like an amazing experience, which I've been and done a cocktail food pairing with Eric Repair, for example, as one example. Or once upon a time, I got to go on a road show with Grant Achatz, who is probably my favorite chef in the world, from Alinea. And those experiences are kind of like how my job kind of sucks me into other worlds. I was recently here for the Grammys, which was fun, in LA, because we were doing some events around it. And the reason we were doing events is we created an album of music to complement the martini cocktail, and an album of music to complement the Negroni cocktail. So the way we get to be creative with marketing around cocktails and gin, leads us into these different paths of various things that are fun. And so I get to be creative in worlds that are not mine. And that's really enjoyable. And I think that's the number one reason why I love my job. It's the creative part, really.
I love that. Right. Well, and it's because alcohol, like you were saying, it's not just like to get drunk. It builds community and it creates like the socializing aspect for people to connect, that it's like, oh, you want to go watch the show, but afterward, if you want to keep hanging out, oh, well, have a drink. And then you get to talk about how the show went and you get to talk about your great meal and pair all of the things you love into one.
You know, you touched on something that is the most beautiful thing about it, to be honest, because it doesn't matter if you have the drink or not. But if it's the reason you got together, I think that people being together is so important, right? Especially in a world where we're on our phones all the time, we're communicating digitally. I saw this video the other day. It was like, you know, some YouTube thing. I'm on my phone, not out. No, I saw this beautiful moment, right? I think his name's Kenneth. He's like 80 years old, and he brings the trolley to the nursing home. What do you call them here? It's like
the assisted living. And every Thursday he turns up with the cocktail trolley, and they all get together, and he's like making a gin and tonic for Martha, and and a whiskey sour for Doris or whatever, right? And they ask them, what do you like about this? And they said, honestly, it's not the drink. It's just, I love it when he comes around and we all gather around and we all have a conversation and we all get together that once a week. It's my favorite time of the week, and whether they finish the drink or not, I think is irrelevant, or even if they ordered something that was non-alcoholic, the fact that it brought people together, which is a fundamental thing that people aren't doing as much these days. I think that it might be a social connector, and of course, if you do have a drink or two, it could be a social lubricant as well. Yeah,
but it does serve a purpose, and as long as you're not the type of person that when you drink become nasty, it can be a nice thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and there's a whole like movement of all the non-alcoholic stuff, right? To give us, because it does seem like the easiest form of like, what do you want to do? What are we going to, let's go grab a drink. But like, as you said, also like as we get older, it gets harder to have the drink. And it's like, but I still want to go to like a bar or whatever and like talk to a stranger and have a conversation.
And that's why I love this non-alcoholic movement, because it doesn't exclude people. Like if you think about hospitality, going to a bar or restaurant, it's about making people feel welcome. And for a long time, if you didn't drink alcohol, you didn't feel welcome. Right? And now you can go out with your friends who are drinking or not drinking, or actually, I saw this recently. I was in a pub where a couple of guys are drinking Guinness, and they have the first pint and then they have the second pint. And then they had a Guinness 0.0. So it's not like, it's not this black and white experience. They just like, we need to slow down a little bit. I don't want to have too many drinks, but I still want to stay out and socialize with my friends. So I'm going to move from the Guinness, where I've got my nice buzz, onto a Guinness 0.0, And,
I did not know they had non-alcoholic Guinness, by the way. You just taught me that.
And actually, it's very good.
Yeah, it is good. I agree with you. I think it is that socializing thing. I miss that about the British pub. Is if I miss anything, it's that British pub of going and having a nice British pint and just having a chat.
Why are you guys better at creating that atmosphere than we are here? Because like as a New Yorker, I do like to talk to strangers, which I feel like you can do it in New York. But if you do it here in LA, it's hit or miss. Like if you find another East Coaster, they're like, hello, I do want to talk to a stranger. But if it's like someone from here, they're like, why are you talking to me? Who are you?
I've always felt it, Casey. I felt that people mostly go out to party in the US, or, that's its primary purpose. And the primary purpose of a pub, is, if you go to a nightclub, you go to dance, that's kind of like the prerequisite. And if you go to a pub in England, it's usually about community, and it's about getting together with your friends and catching up. And less about the party, because sometimes you might go from the pub to the nightclub because but the primary reason you were at the pub was that conversation. And that's why obviously you got to remember that we're British and we're socially inept. We need a drink. We need some silly pub quiz. Yeah. We need some darts, and without these props, we're stuck.
You're making me very nostalgic here.
You're just standing around holding your emotions and unable to say anything.
There was nothing more special than the local pub that you go to every. I mean, like, it's frightening how often you go, and you're right, and you play darts, and then on Christmas Eve, for some reason, that local pub becomes something like everyone's standing on the table singing songs and poetry, and then you see them the next week, and then they're back just holding their pint and having a chat. And you go, what is it? There's one night of the year where they all do that. I kind of love that. You go, oh, there he is. Wait till next Christmas Eve. It's a real surprise.
If the sun comes out just slightly, Casey, just like it just glimmers through the greyness of the clouds, everyone is stood outside the pub with a pint.
Oh.
Like they've got their jackets off, the rain might be coming any minute, but they're like, we are making the most of this moment.
You're going to soak up those 7 minutes of sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. My wife's in London right now, and she said she's walking through London, and she said the streets are just packed outside the pubs. Everyone's just like packed, and you think it's probably, what's the temperature there right now? It's probably
right.
Here we'd be in our puffy coats.
Yeah. Oh, they were in their puffy coats, but they've got a pint in their hand.
But it is the thing of like just standing there. It gives you like a reason to talk to each other. I imagine it's kind of like when people go out for smoke breaks, right? It's like sometimes it's just the nicotine thing, but sometimes they're just kind of standing out there to like chat, and it's the excuse, like as if you're not allowed to just walk up to a person and be like, "Hi, how's your day?" You need something else. I don't know why.
You need a common denominator, like that's two people smoking. Obviously you have something in common, and, and you both have to go out and stand in the cold when everyone else is inside because of the rules. And now you have, a few more things in common. And then you never know if there will be a connect, between you and that other person. But if you don't talk to them, you never know.
Wow.
I am pro talking to strangers personally, whether you have a cigarette or a drink in your hand or you just pass by and like say hello.
If you didn't have either of those things, we would think you were weird in England. We're like, why are they talking to me?
Oh no, they think I'm weird everywhere.
What was 7-year-old Simon into? I mean, obviously, did you have a gin and tonic in your hand at 7 years old?
I hope not.
It's a 7-year-old Simon. God, that probably go-karting. I have no idea quite. It's so long ago. I think I remember 11-year-old Simon liking his roller skating.
Oh, really?
Were you going to be like a professional roller derby kid, or like what? When you were like in primary school and stuff, like what did you think you would grow up to be?
I never had any ambition, which is kind of probably, but I always just liked having fun. So that's probably what happened. That's why I ended up in this career.
You found a way to be a professional fun haver. You did it.
I mean, this might be the moment though. I remember thinking that I might go into politics, right? When I was 18 and I went to study economics. And after a year, I realized, no, I never want to do this. This is, it was a very, I dropped out after 1 year, went to work in a wine shop at the age of 19 and fell in love with the category of wine. It was way before spirits. And the manager of this wine shop just took me on this amazing journey, learning about Burgundies and Bordeaux's and Alsatian wines, and and then all the New World wines. I remember the Greek wines coming out, just like all of the different styles and grape varieties, and just like this wonderful world of flavor of wine, and it just goes with all of those foods as well. And I remember just like 5-6 years of that being my job and learning, that was really good. But honestly, I mean. All right, don't tell. Well, actually, we're on a podcast, so I guess everyone's going to hear.
But no one tell anybody this. Right?
I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be a graffiti artist, and that was me between about the age of 12 and 16. And then I picked up the guitar and thought I'd be a rock star. But yeah, I never got good enough at the guitar.
Don't let that get in the way.
Now you just hang out with rock stars.
Yeah, between 12 and 16, I think I wanted to be a graffiti artist and a photographer. Those were the two things. But honestly, I got mugged. I ran away from home. I ran away from Bath, where I was living. Got on a train. I think I was 13, and I went to London with my camera that I'd got for Christmas. And I went to the area where all the graffiti was. And then I got, and I went down this train track illegally. So I'm getting myself into trouble here. to take a picture of all this amazing work that graffiti art that I'd seen in the book Spray Can Art. And then and with my camera, I then got mugged, and they stole the camera. They stole all my money, so I couldn't get back home. So I had to actually now confess to my mum that I was stuck in London at the police station.
And just for the record, can we just say, are you Banksy or not? We know he's from the West Country of England, but we've never known who he is. So this is your chance.
I wish I could reveal.
Wow. So you still got to be creative. That sucks that happened when you were young. It's weird how experiences like that shape that though, right? Because then you're like, I'm never going to invest in a camera again because people are just going to steal it, and then I can't do it anymore.
It is funny because my friends did chip in to buy me a camera because they felt sorry for me, but they bought me, of course, the camera that wasn't very good. It was very very cheap and nothing I could really use, and so that I traded. That's what I traded it in at a pawn shop for a guitar, and that's when I kind of like switched careers from graffiti artist and photographer to rock guitarist. But, I never got promoted in either of those fields.
You were just always going for very stable professions, weren't you?
No, not really.
All right, we're actually coming towards the end of this.
It goes so quickly.
Yeah, I can't believe we've done this without a drink in our hands. But let's ask the questions we ask everybody. This could be interesting today. So what would you do if you won the lottery, the big one?
I would be very philanthropic with the money. I think I would, that would be give up work and go and help the world. Actually, I want to do something like join World Central Kitchen and make food wherever they go, and sort of pay for my own time to be there and donate to the cause. I think that would be fun. I'd do that for half the year, and then the other half the year, I'd probably use it to make a documentary on the beauty of culture of drinking and food around the world. I know it's been done a million times, but I would have the focus on the drink rather than on the food. But the food just plays a big part of it. But it's also the people within it are also like the creative misfits of the world, and I think that there's so many beautiful characters that should be put up in the spotlight. We often go and I see the TV shows, and obviously Casey and I have a friend that does it brilliantly, Phil Rosenthal, right?
Yeah.
And and he just eats this food and it's amazing. I kind of like want to capture someone with the martini and going behind the scenes.
Simon, let's go do that. You're that guy. Let's make it happen.
I'd love to do it. I do know the people. These things cost money, so I need to win the lottery.
I don't think you need the lottery for that.
You can. I made my documentary for real cheap. Yeah. You can make. Let's talk. We'll make some things happen.
I think that's possible. That one.
I'm all about dreams and figuring out how to be a professional fun haver. Okay, my question. I'm going to tweak it a little for you. What is your go-to snack or comfort food? And also, what is your go-to cocktail or comfort cocktail?
I think the food is probably, I gave the clue away early, but like very expensive dark chocolate. If it wasn't touched by a hipster and it doesn't have organic and it didn't pass through Portland, I'm not sure I want to eat it. But like I love really good quality dark chocolate, and that that's my emotional eating. It's my if I've got a hangover, if I had a bad day, chocolate bar just makes me really, really happy.
Right.
And combine that with a nice glass of red Burgundy, and I'm just at peace with the world. It's an expensive habit. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
No, you answered it.
Yeah.
I'm lost in the moment.
I think we all were for a minute.
You're fantasizing about some good quality artisanal hipster chocolate.
Do you know what was funny? Is just before 5 minutes before we got onto the podcast, there's a dark chocolate bar that's probably made by a hipster just in the mini bar. I went to open it just to have a bite before this, and I couldn't get it open. I'm like, this is all right. Yeah, maybe I won't eat this one right now.
The universe is like, I've made it rough for you to have to second guess yourself.
That's your reward for doing the podcast. You can have it straight away afterwards. So, what's your favorite animal and why, Simon?
So my favorite animal is the elephant. I wonder if it was my grandmother that passed this on to me because it was her favorite animal. It is on the forged gin bottle, quite a lot of them actually. An elephant with its trunk up is for good fortune, for good luck, and I like that. An elephant with its trunk down is a traveling elephant. You know, when they travel, they're always with the trunk down, and it's sort of a symbol of travel. But it's also been used in so many cultures around the world as something that is a protector of the earth. And then just the idea that, I mean, whenever you see an elephant, they're having so much fun with the simplest things in life. It's like, oh, there's some mud, I'm going to have a great time. Or like, oh, water. You know, they're like little kids constantly, even as they get older, but they're also very loyal to each other. And, you know, they sort of stick together as families. And so the elephant is my favorite animal for sure.
They are very smart. And it's funny how like they look like they would be just so like big and like intimidating, but they like smile. You can feel their like playfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're adorable. Okay. Final question, Simon. If we really knew you, what would we know about you?
Oh.
Oh, I hear some censoring happening.
You know, this is a funny one. I get like everyone sees my life. They see this, you know, different. You know, my Instagram is this part of the world, that part of the world, this fancy dinner, this concert, which is of course the most known thing about me is I love live music. It's the number one favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
But you know, like today, all my happiness came from the fact that my daughter got into the school she wanted to go to. Right, she's 11. You know, the thing that made me cry last was watching my daughter perform ballet with such grace, you know, and no, I don't think many people see that side of me because that's the side I don't like to push my family out into the Instagram world. You know, I don't know if it's paranoia for AI or like, you know, their likeness, but you know, I don't want to have 200 pictures of my daughter without her consent on, that people could go back to and embarrass her with or whatever. You know?
That's very nice of you.
I keep my family life quite private, but they're there and they mean the world to me. And not a lot of people know that about me because no one really asks. Because as Dave would know here, the English boys, men, don't talk about anything. You could have a friend for 20 years and not know they were married if you go down the pub.
But you know which team they support.
Yeah, you wouldn't know the football team exactly.
You guys don't talk about the real stuff. That's interesting. Okay,
no, that's a perspective.
Is that an American thing or a strictly Brit thing or nice. A male thing?
Americans are very interested in your world. They're like, what do you do? Are you married? All of those things. In England, we're like, no, I'm telling you, Michael Jackson in 1983 was the biggest star in the world, bar none. No, Prince is not as good as Michael Jackson. Someone else would be like, no, Prince was the best guitarist. I'm telling you, he dominated the eight. That's.
We talk about the important stuff.
We do. Yeah. We're like, is it salt and vinegar crisps or is it plain crisps?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that for 45 minutes.
Yeah, or prawn cocktail.
Cocktail, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad to expose everyone to the multiple cultures so that you guys get to talk about everything. Simon, this has been so nice. I'm sad we're at the end of it. I'm going to have to bother you in real life.
Yes. Real life would be better.
Lovely to meet you, Simon. I'm going to have a drink tonight just because of you. Thank you.
Well, the ultimate cocktail, that's the one I didn't answer.
Oh, yeah.
The cocktail, the best cocktail in the world is a well-made martini. And so gin, vermouth, a little bit of orange bitters, stirred, orange twist. So
stirred, not shaken. Yeah.
Not shaken like Bond, yeah.
Yeah, because Bond was uncouth. That's why that was the whole point of that. And everyone thought, oh, I'll have it shaken like Bond. But it was to show that he was an uncouth man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
I've learned a lot from you, my British friends.
It's been very educational, this one. All right.
I hope everyone has. Thanks for listening, everybody. And go make yourself a cocktail with some dark chocolate so we can properly celebrate Simon. Thank you, Simon.
Bye.
Bye. Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.